Good morning. So we're looking at Siman Kuf Ayin Ches, section 178 in the Alter Shulchan Aruch. Before we go forward, there's two things I want to do. Number one is we spoke about footnote number one, which I want to look at where the Alter Rebbe demonstrates or supports his view that the issue of moving location and thus requiring a new bracha is even if the person is carrying the food with him. So I want to look at footnote number one in a minute. But before, I want to clarify the last paragraph. I think I read it wrong yesterday. So let's look at the last paragraph in Sif Aleph. It says Mikol Mokar. So in the first three paragraphs of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he said that if a person is moving around while eating and moves to a new place, he has to make a new bracha because getting up and moving constitutes the end of his meal. Right? This is what we learned in the Gemara. Come in, just started. This is what we learned. The Gemara, person walks around with his food, goes to a new location, new bracha. Even if he comes back, he walked away, it's a new meal, so he has to make a new bracha. The Alter Rebbe added, if when you made the bracha, you knew you're going to be going from one room to another, then no need for a new bracha. But if you went to a different home or to the courtyard, then his having in mind doesn't help. This is what we learned. Then comes the last paragraph, which I believe I read wrong yesterday. I'm going to read it again now. Right? So those are the three dinim. Number one, we learned that room to room is considered a new location, even if you're holding the food in your hand. Once you have in mind that you're going to be moving, then you can move about the whole house, but you cannot move outside the house, even if you had in mind. Or you can, but you just have to make a new bracha. Now he adds this new halacha, which is, unless, if in the place where he eats, the new location, he can see his mokoimai, his original place, in the first place, where he ate, even if he can see through the window. Even if he can only see part of the room he ate in, he doesn't have to go and make a bracha again, even if he goes from the house to the courtyard. Even if he didn't have this in mind when he made the bracha to begin with. And this is something I think we missed when we spoke about this yesterday. He's telling us here that if you can see the original spot that you ate, it's not considered a new location. And therefore, even if when you made the bracha, you were not expecting to leave the room, but you did leave the room. You went to the courtyard even. And from the courtyard, you can see the place where you ate. It's still considered as if you're in the same location. Right? Even if he's eating a different food, whose bracha is the same as the first bracha, so it's a coffee and a cup of water. So you drink a coffee in the social hall, and then you walked out to the parking lot and you drink a cup of water. You can see from the parking lot, you can see into the social hall. No need for a new bracha, even if you didn't have in mind when you made the bracha on that coffee.
Even if you didn't?
Even if you didn't, that's right. That's the point. That's what we missed yesterday. He's telling us that if you see the original location, it's considered still the same place. New location has to be A, 2 rooms, B, you don't see the original room. But if you see the original room, you're still in the same location.
Talking about the last sentence?
Yeah.
It says,
Oh, so that what's that?
You knew you were going to have water also.
You knew you were going to have another food item.
Okay, yeah.
Not that you knew you were going to walk out.
No, but you were going to have...
the qualification at the end here is a good point. That's what we misread yesterday. If in the new location he drinks something else, the water, which is the same bracha as what he drank originally, coffee or orange and apple, that's only if he knew he was going to eat that other food item. He doesn't have to have in mind that he's moving locations, because he didn't move location, because the fact that he can see the original location means he never moved. He's still in the same place. But what he does have to have in mind is that he's eating the other food item. Commotion is used as will be explained in section 206. Section 206 discusses if a person makes a bracha ha'etz, let's say, and in front of him is grapes, right? And then in the middle, someone brings out apples. When he made the bracha on the grapes, he had no idea the apples were coming. So they're discussing he has to make a new bracha on the apples. Not because of new location, because a new food item that wasn't expected. There's lots of caveats to the rule. And the most important caveat you should know is that if you're sitting down to a meal and you're being served,
and you don't know what's coming.
You don't know what's coming. But your intention when you make the bracha is to eat whatever your host is going to serve you. Then you don't have to make any new bracha, even though you weren't expecting certain food items. And the same things with your wife. You sit down for dinner, your intention is to eat whatever she serves you. So if it so happens she brings a bowl of soup that you didn't know was coming, no new bracha, because it's incorporated. Okay.
Sorry, if I were to bring now with my coffee water,
I
knew I was going to have both, and I did shackle on this.
You knew you were going to have a water.
Yeah,
so no new bracha.
So I just do shackle on this.
That's right. But if I walked out and offered everybody water, then and you weren't expecting, you make a new bracha, you make a new shackle on the water, even though you didn't move location. And that's what he's adding here. That when you see the original location you ate in, it's as if you're still in the same location. And therefore, all the laws of same location apply, even if a new food item comes, so long as you knew that new food item was coming.
Does this apply? Because he says like lachatzer, so I guess outside the building, but it's still in the same.
Oh, good question. So
does
the
it apply if I'm in another building?
Very good question.
I still see my original location.
Very good
neighbors.
Very good question. So let's go to footnote 4. But before we go to that, was everything clear so far? Oh, so before we go to footnote 4, we learned a law that was similar to this. Anyone?
Yeah, we did with the neighbor.
Yeah, for Kiddush.
Oh,
yeah.
Kiddush in the place where you eat. And actually, that's the Alter Rebbe source. If you look in the footnotes here, that's the Alter Rebbe source. Because our Gemara compares eating in the same place as Kiddush to eating in the same place of your bracha, right? The two laws come together. The Gemara discusses it in the context of making Kiddush and Shol, and does the Hagafen transfer home or does the Kiddush transfer home? Which means the laws are similar, at least in terms of how we define same location. And therefore, when it comes to Kiddush, we define that when you can see when you could see the location where you make Kiddush, that's considered eating the meal in the presence of your Kiddush. So likewise, if you can see the place where you ate, then it's considered eating in the same place and you haven't moved out of the same location yet.
And within the same room, even if you don't see, it's the same.
In the same room, even if you don't see, that's right. It's the same laws, that's right, correct. But now let's see what Laron asked a good question, because the Gemara here, Alter Rebbe says, if he can see the original location, he does not need to make a new bracha, even if he goes from the house to the courtyard. That was the example the Alter Rebbe gave. When it came to Kiddush, the Alter Rebbe said even from one house to another. So why here does he say house to courtyard? Why not house to house? Maybe he means only house to courtyard. Right? So let's see footnote number 4. And then we'll go to footnote 1. Excuse me. Yeah, it should be in the back there. The last page should have footnotes. Yeah, it's not there.
Oh yeah, we do. It's just mixed up.
It didn't come out good. Oh, it printed on top of each other.
Yeah.
Oh man, I apologize.
You have them there, no?
I do. Okay, I'll read it slowly. Badei HaShulchan maintains that this ruling applies even when one moves from one house to another, as long as one can see his place in the first house from the second house. The change of locations is not considered as an interruption of the meal. He's keeping it consistent with Kiddush. Just like when it comes to Kiddush, my neighbor, if he can see me making Kiddush through the window, he can eat in his house, and that's considered him eating in the place of Kiddush. So too here, if I can see the room, even if I'm in a different home, it's considered I'm eating in the same location.
But he needs to hear it, right?
Here, it's not. Here, there's no.
No, but I'm saying about Kiddush.
The neighbor has to hear the Kiddush. Yes. Yeah. There are, however, others who raise questions with regard to this ruling of the Badei HaShulchan, maintaining that the fact that the Alter Rebbe did not mention such a situation in this context, he only mentioned house to courtyard, did not mention house to house, that there's a difference between a courtyard and a second house. So it seems that these few words is a matter of contention between, till today, modern Chabad poskim, modern Chabad halachic rulers, as to what the Alter Rebbe's intention here is. When he says house to courtyard, does he mean specifically house to courtyard? Or he means just like Kiddush, house to courtyard, as long as you can see. So the answer, the question is unanswered, but at least we know that it's being discussed. Okay, but it's clear.
Maybe.
I have a question.
No? Or that's
Maybe they would have known, but let's see. Yeah, what do you want to say, Yeshua?
Yeah, does it matter from which direction you need to view? I mean, it sounds.
How do you mean?
From one location to the other, or the other location to the first? Because it said
it's the new location to the old one.
From the new one, because it said
Yeah.
from the. I think it said from the text from the first to the second, so I was just
No,
curious.
read it. In the makom shoichel, if in the place where he's eating, yochel lidois es mekoimoy harishin she'achasham. He can see the first place from which he ate. So he's in the new place, seeing the first place.
Oh, okay.
I think the English also, even where he
The
ate.
commentary. Okay.
If he's able to see the place where he first ate from the location where he's now eating.
Okay, that's pretty clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
So let's look now at footnote 1 and see how the Alter Rebbe concluded. Can you? Is footnote 1 printed nicely on your thing, or it's also not clear?
No, that one's fine.
Yeah, footnote 1 is good. Okay. So footnote 1, the Alter Rebbe is going to demonstrate how he concluded that even when you're carrying the food from one location to another, you require a new bracha.
Good.
It's not good?
No, I thought it was, but it's not.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let me read it slowly.
After 4, we should be fine.
All right, so first Alter Rebbe says like this. The footnote reads like this. Psachim 101b, that's our Gemara, the source for this teaching. See also section 273, which mentions similar principles regarding Kiddush. We learned that for Kiddush must be recited in the place of one's meal. Okay. In Kuntus Achron Kuntus Achron literally means a final pamphlet. It's kind of like an appendix. Kuntus Achron is like an appendix, and essentially it's notes in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch in which he elaborates on how he came to his conclusion when there are times that there's sometimes when it calls for that. So there he writes, in Kuntus Achron note 1, the Alter Rebbe supports his position that a change of location warrants reciting a new blessing, even if one is holding the food in his hand. As mentioned in subsection 3, which we're going to learn, this law refers to foods that do not require the blessing recited after partaking of them be recited in the place where one originally ate, right? We know this. We know this from the Gemara already, that the whole law of making a new bracha when you move location is only when you're eating something that the halacha doesn't anchor you back to, right? If the halacha itself calls you back to your place to eat, then no new bracha because your meal isn't over yet, right? This is what we're going to learn in halacha 3 shortly. So now, since there is nothing anchoring the person to the place where he originally ate, meaning that there's no halachic anchor because he doesn't have to go back. Then, when he changes his location, his halachic connection to that place, and thus to the blessing he recited there, ceases. If he desires to eat in a new location, he must recite the blessing again. Okay, this is all something we knew from our Gemara. So, what's Alter Rebbe telling us from this fact? What's making you move away? What's the reason why when you move locations you make a new bracha?
You're not necessarily coming back.
Because halacha doesn't make you come back. If that's the case, what's the difference if you're holding the food in your hand or not? Even if you're holding the food in your hand, it's still true that halacha is not calling you back to make your after bracha. So why should holding the food in your hand make a difference?
Not over.
Huh?
Your meal's not over.
But if the way in which the Gemara defines meal being over or not is whether or not the halacha calls you back, the halacha doesn't call you back even if you're carrying your coffee. Which means from that thinking, the meal is over even when you walked out, even though you're holding the coffee. Because the definition of an over meal is, does the halacha call you back? And if it didn't call you back, meal's over. This is the first point. Okay, this is not as strong. Let's look at the next point, which is really strong and really makes a strong case for this idea that even if you're holding the food, new location means new bracha. So to further support his ruling, the Alter Rebbe cites section 2069, which explains that even when one does not change his location, this is the section we were discussing earlier. Even when one does not change his location, if the food that has originally been served is finished, he's eating grapes and they're gone, and a fresh supply is brought, new supply of grapes, and he wasn't expecting those grapes, he should recite a new blessing before partaking of it, unless he initially had in mind to eat more than what has been served at first. So if we sat down and I put out what I thought was the last pile of grapes, we finished it, and we're like, those grapes were great, I wish we had more. And then someone says, hey, I have more, and brings. We have to make a new bracha. Because when we made the first bracha, we had no relationship to those new grapes. Our relationship in that bracha was only to the grapes present. If when I made the bracha, I had in mind, whatever I'm served today, I'll eat. Like when I'm in someone else's home. So my bracha is connected to everything that's going to be served. But when my bracha is or it happens even when you're you're eating at home. This happens to me personally, so it's I had supper with the kids at I don't know 5 o'clock. By the time 10:30 comes around, I'm ready for round two, right? Okay, so I'm not gonna take out the whole supper, but I'll grab a sandwich or something. So I sit down and eat something, and then my appetite opens, and I'm like, oh wow, I could be eating more. So I decided to go back and let's make another sandwich.
So you make a new
I have to make a new bracha. Because when I first sat down, I was like, okay, I'm just going to eat a sandwich. I'm good. I don't need that much. And then all of a sudden, I realized I need more, right? So when I made the first bracha, I had no intention to make that other sandwich. Whatever it is. I have to make a new bracha.
So the same thing. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry?
It's all about intent.
Correct. What's the relationship between my bracha and the food? Okay, so now keeping that in mind. Thus, the statement of the Gemara and Psachim that one is required to recite a new blessing when he changes location obviously refers even to an instance where the person is holding the food in his hand. For were that source only to refer to a situation in which he does not take the food with him, it would be superfluous. For that can easily be deduced from the law stated previously. If we're talking about a new food item when you go to the other location, then I don't need the change of location to require a new bracha. It's the new food that requires me a new bracha. The fact that the Gemara is introducing a new law, not only does new food make a new bracha, but new location makes a new bracha, then it must be with the same food. Otherwise, what's the change? What's the new law here? That's how the Alter concludes. It's even if you take the food with you. Because if it's a new food item, even if it's a coffee here and then a coffee there, if I was only expecting to drink one coffee and a second coffee is brought to me, I'd be making a new bracha even if I didn't change location. So certainly when I'm changing location, I have to make a new bracha. And what's the whole chiddush? What's the whole novelty of the whole Gemara and Psachim to tell us when you move location, new bracha, if it's a different food? If it's a different food, you anyways have to make a new bracha because you didn't have in mind to eat that. Because you're right. Therefore, the Alter concludes it must be even when you're carrying the very food. Now, this is a very strong support for this view that even if you're carrying the food with you, when you go to a new location, you're requiring a bracha. Okay, is that clear? Let's go now to halacha base. So now we're going to start giving all the caveats that the Gemara gave earlier, that the Gemara told us already, 2 caveats specifically. Number 1, did you leave anyone behind? Number 2, is this the kind of food item that the halacha is anchoring you back to? Which we already know it's not, but the Alter hasn't told us that yet. Halacha base. All of this whole law, that when you move one location to another, you have to make a new bracha, is biyachid. Is with one person who's eating alone, and he walks away, new bracha. Or members of a group, and they all got up, from one place to another, then they are required to make a new bracha. But if they left some people back in the original place, even if they only left one person, and everyone else left, even if they went to a different home, right? The Gemara had the example of people going to shul. So we're eating at home, a bunch of people went to the shul, and one guy's left behind. Now get this, even if it's not right next door. So they walked 2 blocks away to the shul, but they left someone behind at the table. Then when they come back to that table where that person is waiting for them, they do not need to make a bracha on what they're going to continue eating over here, as if they never got up and left at all. Why? Because they left behind some of their friends. Their original established sitting remains. The Ein Zu Akira. It's not considered a departure because someone's there. What did Alter just add here? And did he pick up on the nuance there?
Did they take their own place back?
No, this word. Their original establishment is stayed, which means this halach applies only when they all sat down together. If they happen to all be eating in this, only if they all sat down together. If they happen to all be sitting in the same room, and one guy walks out and he comes back and says, "Oh, look, there's still some people here from the last time when I left. No new bracha, that doesn't count." A good example of this would be in the social hall downstairs. The social hall has 200 people on Shabbos.
So everybody.
But I walked out. I wasn't eating that, but I was eating myself. And then I walked out and I came back. I'd have to make a new bracha. The fact that there's other people there doesn't mean anything. It's only if I sat down with people and we're Farbrengen, we're eating together, and then I tell the guys, "Hey, I'll be back in 10 minutes." So it's only when, even though we're not eating food items that halacha requires you to come back, but we've decided to sit down together and Farbrengen, we're saying l'chaim together, whatever, right? So because there's a kfiyusam, there's an established sitting together. If when I walk away, those people can anchor me still back to that place. That's what he points out in footnote 6 here. Yeah.
So your own food, if I'm holding my own food room to room, I need to make a new blessing.
Yeah.
But if I leave people at a table,
That we were sitting together,
I can leave the building,
walk 2 blocks away, go
come
home,
back
say,
and
tell your
do the
wife I'm
blessing.
Farbrengen, I'm coming back in a few hours. Go back,
And
go
do the
back,
blessing.
and you know new blessing. That's right. That's what he points out in footnote 6 here. The Alter Rebbe uses the term kfiyusa, which implies that the group sat down to eat as a unit in a significant setting. Thus, unless all the members of the group depart from that place, it is still considered as their base. Okay, now you also might have noticed that the Alter Rebbe said that when they come back, you look before, it says, V'ashar halchu kulam, kishem chayzim, when they come back to their place, ein tzrichim levarech al masher yochlu kan. They don't have to make a bracha on that which they're going to eat here. Oh, and therefore he continues in the second paragraph of Beis. If they want to eat in the place where they went to. So let's say there's a Farbrengen in Shul, right? So we all sat down together. No one washed. I didn't have mezainis. So I'm not eating anything that the halacha requires me to come back to. But it's an established sitting because we're Farbrengen together. Now I wasn't expecting a Farbrengen, right? So my wife is expecting me home at a certain time. So I decide, you know what, boys, give me 5 minutes. I'm gonna run home, tell my wife that I'm gonna be late today because it's a Farbrengen and I'm coming back. So I go home and I tell my wife that I'm gonna be late for Kiddush because it's a Farbrengen in Shul, and don't wait for me, whatever, I'll be back in an hour. And then I come back to the Farbrengen. When I come back, no new bracha. Because we sat down together, established. I left people behind, so no new bracha. But what happens if when I go home, I decide to have a drink of water because it's hot outside? Then I have to make a new bracha over there. Even though when I come back, I don't have to make a new bracha because my bracha that I made in that location is anchored by the people sitting at the Farbrengen, but it doesn't anchor me to a bracha when I get home. And the fact that I left people at the original location doesn't help me with a bracha for the new location, which is where I'm going in the meantime. Okay. Okay, we'll stop over here because the next Sif, Gimel, gets to the next caveat, which is the difference between food items that the halacha anchors you to versus the food item the halacha doesn't anchor you to. And we know already from our Gemara that this whole law only applies when the halacha does not anchor you back. Right? If the halacha tells you got to come back to make after blessing, then that itself continues your meal and no need for a new bracha, which we'll get to, God willing, on Wednesday. I'm going to be in New York on Monday and Tuesday, so we're going to pick up our class, God willing, on Wednesday with Halacha Gimel.
So Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, I'm not here. I'm going to be in New York, and then God willing.
Is it a long weekend this weekend or no?
Is there a vacation on Monday? I don't know.
No. Someone told me happy long weekend. I don't know why.
I don't think so. Well, we have a yard site, so we're going to go to visit the Kever in New York. Okay, you can have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you. Good day, good Shabbos.
I hope you're appreciating when you learn halacha, not just the dry do, don't do. When you get from the background to the Gemara, you see the whole thing until finally you get to the conclusion. I hope you're appreciating how much more beautiful and rich it is to learn the halacha that way. Sorry?
It makes you think that when you
That's right.
eat something.
So you're much more aware. If you just hear the dry law, remember you forget when you learn the background and see how we got from the Gemara down to the halacha that we're practicing, you appreciate it much more. You have a wonderful day, Yidden. Good Shabbos.
Thank you. Good job.